every so often we mention you going from elementary over to endless, but
Mhm.
oh, and I don't want to get into like why you left elementary. Like that doesn't really matter. But why is it that endless is the place you ended up at? Like, what was it about
Mhm.
endless that made you want to go and join them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like, say, like originally, back in 2015, I had a really cool experience at the Endless offices. It wasn't the fact that it was Endless that made it a cool experience there, but like that's when I first heard about Endless
Mhm.
was then. And then over the years, I've interacted with and met and hung out with a lot of people who worked at Endless,
Mhm.
and so I mean, Rob McQueen, like I remember at one of the Quadecs, we sat on a bus driving up when we thought the bus might have gotten stuck, uh, driving up into the mountains to like a picnic at one of the after event things.
Mhm.
They like chartered buses for or whatever. And like we sat on the bus and talked about Flatpak for like an hour or however long we were like stuck on the bus waiting for them to like clear the road for us or whatever it was. So like I sat next to Rob McQueen and like he's a CEO of the Endless West Foundation and also like president of the Gnome Board, which is cool. Also just a friend of mine from the open source world. Will Thompson and I had hung out and talked in over just random different times and like and he ended up being my manager at Endless when I joined. And so like I think that was a big part of it was like
Mhm.
I just knew the people. I knew a lot of the people. And like I knew them from their work in the gnome world.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um I also have this like it's like slightly sarcastic, but there's like some truth to it of like Endless is secretly behind everything you love about gnome. That's what I tell people. I'm like and then like they start looking at it, they're like, actually you're kind of not wrong. But Endless has poured a lot of like development effort. I mean, so a lot of core gnome maintainers, a lot of Endless engineers are core gnome maintainers
Mhm.
for things like gnome calendar, gnome shell, uh, like glib and like really low level stuff, and like or contribute a lot to just lots of different things like Philip Withnall, Georgia Stravakos, our brain is totally blanking here, Will Thompson,
Mhm.
and like they they've worked on a lot of gnome stuff over the years and are really integral in gnome. And so like I knew them,
Mhm.
but then like it's like yeah, I want to be where those people are. Like they are not only are they doing good work,
Mhm.
they're pushing gnome in the right way, not like forcing gnome, but like they're helping guide, I guess would be the way I'd say. They're guiding gnome into a direction I think is a really positive direction.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
a lot like the gnome 40 changes, which like people thought was going to be super contentious and then was almost completely universally loved by everybody, where like hey, what if we had like a nice like workspace overview and like switched from vertical to horizontal and all this stuff. Like that was driven by user research and development from Endless. Endless has poured tons of time, both development and money into Flatpak and FlatHub, into GTK, into like what has become some of the core pieces of Adwaita.
Mhm.
Like a lot of the things that are making up this ecosystem that we have now in Gnome. Again, not to discount any work that anybody else has done. There's
Sure.
other
Sure.
companies, other people, individuals that have done incredible work here too. Purism is another one that comes to mind of like the focus on mobile that they've actually been pushing GNOME into a really nice like place now too.
Mhm. Mhm.
But Endless has been there a lot too. Like Endless was the platinum sponsor of Władek
Ah.
this year and possibly the last several years. Like Endless is frequently on the that like sponsorship list.
Mhm.
Endless has been on the GNOME advisory board, which is like a place where people come and like help shape Endless and help shape GNOME
Mhm.
from our individual perspectives and like talk to other distros and things. Like Endless has kind of been behind a lot of that stuff. Again, not some secret cabal with some crazy like secret scheme, but more just like Endless sees GNOME as like the obvious choice for building what we want to build,
Mhm.
and so that attracted me to Endless too. It's
Mhm.
like I had seen that happening behind the scenes and really like respected that approach to
Mhm.
the work
Mhm.
of like rather than just Endless OS, because Endless OS in the past and today they could like in the past they had basically their own completely custom distro
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
its own UI. It was built on GNOME technologies, but it was like a hard fork, super hard fork from what GNOME was shipping.
Mhm.
But over the years, like especially now, like it's very close to upstream. There's like one extension that ships on the GNOME desktop, and then other than that, it's stock GNOME. And that extension reuses as much actual stuff from GNOME shell as it can, and like it moves some things around. Like it's as close as possible to upstream while delivering on the design vision that's there. But as far as like all the investment, if possible, it's all being done upstream. The end goal for Endless OS is that it's just stock GNOME. Like the idea is like shape GNOME in the direction that Endless wants it, and also like just Endless's ideas too in that direction too. Uh, so I think I like saw that happening and respected that work, and it was really exciting to be working directly in and with GNOME, the GNOME community and GNOME design. Uh, yeah, that's the big thing. I think that, and then like Will, who I followed on social media because I just knew him from the internet, he posted a job posting. Like, and this is when at elementary we were talking about like, what if we, you know, took, what if we didn't take a salary anymore to like so we could pay some developers to work full time on these like very specific initiatives, and like what in the midst of those talks, Will posted a job posting, and I was like, Will, did you write this for me? Because like I haven't told anybody that we're thinking about doing it from the elementary side, that we're thinking about like taking a job elsewhere and working on this in our free time again. I mean, that's how we did it for years and years, right? Like we did elementary like that for a long time. It was very successful. But uh yeah, it was like, did you write this job posting for me? Because it kind of sounds perfect. And I talked to him a little bit. He's like, no, but like you should apply. It'd be great. And like so we just like hit it off really well there. So I think that's like that is twofold. It's like I knew Endless, I knew the people behind Endless, and I saw what they were doing, and then just also the time, like
The timing lined up perfectly.
yeah, it just happened to be like perfect. So yeah, yeah, and it's really cool because it's like I had also been to thinking I think I'd been to another GNOME Hack Fest over the years, like representing System 76 working on Pop OS. It was actually the GNOME Shell Design Hack Fest, which I would say is like the initial seeds of what became GNOME 40. And there were people from Endless there. There were people from Purism there. There were people from Red Hat there. There were people from System 76 there. And consequently, people from Elementary there as well, because I was kind of wearing both hats, right? And so, like, again, going to those things and seeing and meeting people in person and kind of being part of that. Like, I met Georges. I met some of the design people working on Endless OS. And, like, so I saw and respected what they were doing. Another one I went to, it was the Parental Controls and Metered Data Hackfest. Super terrible name, but exactly to the point, right? Of like, there were two features that Endless OS had that they were like, we want to just upstream these because first of all, that means we don't have to maintain them ourselves. And second of all, like it's more useful if more people use it, right? That spreads the impact as a nonprofit. Like Endless is a nonprofit, and so they're like, if we do this work upstream, it actually has a wider impact than if we just did it in Endless OS. So obviously, upstream is the right way to go. So parental controls. So in like GNOME software, throughout the Flatpak, everything like all the and in GNOME Shell itself, and then in GNOME settings, like all the way through the stack, you have to support this idea of content ratings, and that's where like the ORS content ratings come from, and so enforcing that on a technical level throughout the stack. And Elementary had actually done some interesting earlier work on that. And so we were interested in like collaborating with GNOME on like, hey, if we're both doing the same thing, let's work together on it. So then I saw Endless had done all the engineering work on the actual thing that Elementary ended up using. So there was that there. And then same with metered data. So like when you connect, if you like tether to an Android phone, or if you have like a SIM card in your actual device, whether it's a phone or a laptop or whatever, like GNOME has this idea of knowing that your connection is metered, and so it can do smart things with that. So like it won't do auto updates over metered data, or maybe it'll reduce video call bandwidth over metered data, or whatever. And that again, that came from Endless. The whole idea of Endless OS is like expensive or low quality or slow internet connections or no internet. And so maybe you only have internet certain hours, but it's really expensive, and so you want to make sure your computer doesn't just go wild when it has internet. And so now that's in GNOME, and like GNOME has that, and I saw that came from Endless, and so like I think just being exposed to that of like, oh, Endless is like has their fingers in all the really important places that are really cool, made it a really natural transition for me.
One last thing. What in the world is a
Yeah.
partner success engineer? Because that sounds like a made up job title.
Yeah, if you figure it out, let me know because I have no idea. No. So yeah, the gist is like I like to call it the bridge between the engineering team at Endless. So
Right.
there's a bunch of engineers at Endless that like do the engineering stuff. And then there's these partner organizations who are out there in the world who might be
Right.
like nonprofits, there might be school districts, there might be governments that are like putting Endless OS in the ground.
Mhm.
So they're actually the ones who get a bunch of computers donated to them or they buy them or whatever, and then they put Endless OS on them. And so I'm the bridge between those people
Mhm.
and our engineers. That's the simplest way to put it.
Okay. That
And
makes sense.
so the bridge part, it's a two-way communication thing, right? Like I have quite a bit of a technical background and I can speak engineer with the engineers. And so I can understand what they're talking about most of the time. Sometimes I have to ask them clarifying questions, but I can usually understand what they're talking about.
Mhm.
And then I can kind of translate it into like what the totally non-engineer people on the other side
Right.
are, would understand. And then, or if like the people on the other side are like, oh, we really needed to do this. This is almost where the user experience background comes in. It's like, well, they're saying they want this, but the problem they're actually having is this. So I'm going to tell the engineers this.
Yeah.
So it's like this two-way translation between what the engineers are doing and what the partners need. So as a nonprofit, we have a bunch of partners all around the world who are deploying Endless OS and other endless stuff that we do um, to like tens of thousands of people.
Mhm.
And so the only way that's scalable is like if we don't do it all ourselves. We're a
Mhm.
relatively small company or a nonprofit, and like we rely on those people who are on the ground
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
be competent and both competent but also like well resourced.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
if they have a question about like, oh hey, I'm having a problem installing Endless OS, like it's not really like a normal tech support question. It's like I'm maybe they're an IT person at a school district and they have a very technical question.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So like it's kind of fielded through me, and if I don't know the answer, I'll find the right engineer who does know the answer. And so it's really that bridge between. And so it's like
Mhm.
that's where it comes back to the partners. So it's my job is to make our partners successful while working with the engineering team. So
Mhm.
it's like all the words make sense, but
Mhm.
it's not a normal thing. Sometimes people hear like developer advocate, and like
Right.
I also
Right.
don't love that because it's super amorphous. But like that's similar to that.
Mhm.
There's an aspect of like community management to it too, because I'm interacting with like I'm representing the Endless OS Foundation when working with outside people and organizations and stuff, but it's not quite that. So yeah, it's kind of a customer success is a thing, but that usually kind of just is coded to mean support. So
Right.
like
Right.
it's somewhere in between all of those things. But yeah, that's generally what it is.